Press play. He's the voice of the intersection of marketing, tech, and popular culture. Thinking is his commodity. DJ, data punk, stylish sock collector, and author of the book Disruptive Marketing. Jeffrey Cologne is your host of Disruptive FM, the marketing podcast for eccentric minds.
Friday, it's another episode of Disruptive FM, the marketing podcast for eccentric minds. I'm your host, Jeffrey Cologne, broadcasting live from the campus of Microsoft in Redmond, Washington. Hope you had a good week. Another great episode in store. We talk about television ads and Super Bowl 50. What if we could personalize ads and target them direct to each viewer? Also, the rebrand of Uber. Have they gone off the deep end in this particular rebrand? And is it possible it could lose some of their most faithful customers? Plus, inspiration for innovation quotes, as we do every week. All that and more on this episode of Disruptive FM. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Disruptive FM. And participate in the conversation using hashtag DisruptiveFM, wherever hashtags are used. If you're not using Twitter, you can follow me on Instagram at DJGEOFFE. Can't promise that I'll post a lot of photos that are representative of the show, but if you like stylish socks, definitely an Instagram account to follow. So Super Bowl 50 is this weekend. The Denver Broncos will be playing who are they playing again? Oh yeah, that's right, the Carolina Panthers. Sorry folks, as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, probably only watching for the television ads. And that reminds us, what do the TV ads mean anymore in a world that is filled with cord cutters and less people paying attention to advertisements? In some respects, I think the thing that might be missing from television in general is the fact that it cannot personalize ads or serve them up in a programmatic fashion. Very similar to what we see in search advertising or digital display advertising, even social media advertising. You can choose the audience that you want to target using Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, or Facebook. We still can't do that on television. So does that hurt the medium? My answer to this is yes. I think one of the things that really hurts the medium is the fact that it still falls into the TV industrial complex, the spray and pray methodology. A lot of companies are going to be spending a lot of money, almost the cost of a small country's gross domestic product, to air their television ad on Sunday night. Well, it makes sense that much of their message will actually fall on deaf ears or eyes that won't be viewing those screens because they'll be viewing second screens, their iPads, their Surfaces, their mobile phones. So what is television advertising to do? Well, the medium itself could be as much of a dinosaur as we think of terrestrial radio. It has really the inability to target, and it has relied heavily on programming or content for much of its existence to really find audience. But audiences are so fragmented now. A audience that watches a show like The Big Bang Theory, sure, they might fall between the ages of, let's say, 19 and 35. But what are their other interests? What else drives them? What are the things that they do beyond watching that particular program? This is where television, I think, falls flat compared to the other platforms that have cropped up in the past couple of years. The Facebooks, the Twitters, the Pinterests, the Snapchats, the Tumblrs of the world. All of that has much more rich data that exists on users, which is highly usable if you're a creative advertiser and you know exactly what niche audience you're trying to go after. Not so good if you're still a big brand marketer and living in the past and trying to serve up a message where you feel that bigger is better. Obviously, we know that's not the case anymore. Chris Anderson talked a lot about this in his book, The Long Tail. which is 10 years old this year. So if you haven't read it, definitely go out and check out a copy of it. Still relevant in 2016 more than ever. So television and the Super Bowl. What ads do you think you'll pay attention to? Will it actually make you or incentivize you to buy? Will it make you brand loyal? Or will you still just sort of ignore the entire facade, looking for other opportunities during commercial breaks that might be happening in different ecosystems? This is one of the reasons why I think television has really lost its allure, much like radio advertising. We know the ads are going to come, and when they do, we're most likely going to bail and look for chips, possibly the beer, and other things. Good conversation, let's say, with the people around us to keep us occupied. Thoughts? Do you think television advertising is still relevant for big live sporting events like the Super Bowl or the World Cup or the World Series, the Grammys or the Oscars? Feedback at Disruptive FM on Twitter, or use the hashtag Disruptive FM across any platform that supports hashtags. So another thing that happened this past week that was very interesting is the fact that Uber went through a very large rebrand. Now, Uber's got a lot going on for it right now. It is one of the hot startups of the moment, highly valued. The interesting thing about the rebrand this time around is the logo's totally changed. It got rid of the dominant U that we were so familiar with in the icon on our phones. And now they have sort of this green backwards C. Sort of the influence, according to the company, is this bits and atoms influence. In some respects, I think Uber's lost the plot. It's living in a dystopian science fiction that it's trying to create for the rest of us. And many of us, I think, are possibly scared about that future. One in which we jump from job to job or gig to gig. We can barely make ends meet, and ultimately will be outsourced by driverless vehicles when the computers and robots take over. But all kidding aside, it's very interesting to see a brand refresh itself without much meaning behind that refresh. What is the purpose of this rebrand? I'm still trying to figure it out. Maybe that is the purpose. Maybe it's to basically confuse everyone so that we're kept on our toes trying to figure out what's going to happen next. Another week of inspiration for innovation quotes. We love to read these to you. Hopefully it keeps you excited and interested in the show. Make sure you subscribe and review our show on iTunes. I'll be honest and transparent. I've been podcasting for 10 years, and this past week we actually got into the top 200 of new and noteworthy business podcasts. Let's see if we can actually take this to the top 10. Why not? We are the marketing podcast for eccentric minds. I want to stay as close to the edge as I can without going over. Out on the edge, you see all kinds of things you can't see from the center. Kurt Vonnegut. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Dr. Seuss. You can analyze the past, but you have to design for the future. Edward de Bono, professor of thinking. And finally, I'll leave you with this one for the week. If you hear a voice within you say, "You cannot paint," then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. Vincent van Gogh. That's another week of Disruptive FM, the marketing podcast for eccentric minds, broadcasting live from the campus of Microsoft. I'm your host, Jeffrey Colon. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at DJGEOFFE. That's at DJ Jeffy. And of course, follow me on LinkedIn for my thought leadership, Jeffrey, with a G, the phonetic spelling, last name Colon, C-O-L-O-N. And of course, subscribe and review the podcast, Disruptive FM, on iTunes. Keep a lookout for my upcoming book, Disruptive Marketing, what growth hackers, data punks, and other hybrid thinkers can teach us about navigating the new normal. Out this August.
You've been listening to an episode of Disruptive FM, the marketing podcast for eccentric minds. Remember to subscribe to the show on iTunes. Purchase a copy of Jeffrey's latest book, Disruptive Marketing, on Kindle, hardcover and audio. Signing off from the city of Seattle. Press pause.